Hello, my friends, and welcome to She's on the Money. I am Victoria Devine, and around here, we are all about making money a little less overwhelming. We have a community of more than 300,000 people. We have podcasts and blogs. We also have freebies like budgeting tools and investing cheat sheets to help you feel more in control of your financial future.
She's on the
Money.
She's on the money.
My name's Natasha Bamblett. I'm a proud First Nations woman and I'm here to acknowledge country. Hello, beautiful friends. We gather on the lands of the Aboriginal people. We thank, acknowledge and respect the Aboriginal people's land that we're gathering on today. Take pleasure in all the land and respect all that you see. She's on the Money podcast acknowledges culture, country, community and connections, bringing you the tools, knowledge and resources for you to thrive.
Hello and welcome to She's on the Money, the podcast that helps you turn big money goals into everyday realities. If you've been quietly thinking, I'm never going to own a home unless I marry rich or I win the lottery, my friends, this episode is going to be for you because you don't need an inheritance. You don't need a partner. You don't need to earn six figures, and you might not even need to have a whole 20% deposit for your home. What you do need though is a strategy, and one that works to your reality. I'm Victoria Devine, and you may be wondering, well, where's Beck today? My friends, she's off gallivanting, but don't worry because you are in very good hands, because today I am joined by Miss Jessica Ricci, who's currently on her own journey to buy a home without the bank of mum and dad. Jess, welcome back to what I would say is your own show.
Thank you. At this point, why not? Make it all about any opportunity to make it all about me.
Any opportunity for me to get you on the show and talk about property, I feel like works really well because like you're the one that's in the nitty gritty of it at the moment. And I couldn't think of anyone better to do this episode with me because you're not only doing it without the help of your parents, but you're buying solo without the help of your partner as well. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so I feel like most people probably know this story by now, but my partner and I were just in very different financial situations. I've been working full-time since I was 18. He's been in and out of a few different university courses, kind of figuring out his life path. And so that meant that I had the benefit of time on my side where I've kind of gotten myself into debt, gotten myself out of debt, saved up a house deposit, done all of these things.
It's been a journey.
Yeah, before he even really entered the workforce properly full time. So I was in a financial position to purchase and he wasn't. And also I think for me, I really like the idea of having my own asset from a safety net perspective. Like
I want you to have that too. Like I just love the idea that and we love James. Nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely not.
But we love the idea that you could be like out.
Yeah.
And like you can.
God forbid something went wrong. I think the sense of security that will give me will be really significant. And hopefully, I buy the first house, we live in that together. And then eventually when he's ready, we buy our forever home together.
Exactly. And I feel like for those of you who might not have heard, Jess's journey or like what her plan is before, I feel like it just really proves that every single person's path is very different to home ownership, which is why getting clear on your own why is the first tip that I have put on my list for today. You need to know, why do you actually want to have a forever home? Jess, you've talked a lot about the importance of having a forever home for security and you want to make sure that you've got your own back. Or like some people are looking for a for now home because they want to get their foot in the door or their, foot on the ladder or whatever we're calling it. We need to ask ourselves, is your timeline tied to like specific life goals? Like maybe you want to start a family in like 5 years or you're planning to move into the country. You need to ask yourself, are you in it for capital growth? Like, are you looking at this as an investment? Is this an asset class? So should we be looking at potentially rent vesting instead? Like if that's the case, where can we get the biggest bang for our buck? And are you only considering it, and this is a big one, are you only considering home ownership because society has been telling you that that's a good idea and something that you should do? Like I know growing up, a part of my narrative that I'd made up in my head, by the way, I was probably going to be married. I would have had 2 kids by the time I was 25 in my head, right? Because 25, oh my God, so old, Jess. And I would have owned my own home. But that's because ingrained in me was the great Australian dream. Everyone does that, right? It's kind of like a rite of passage.
Yeah.
And that's not the reality anymore. So I think we really need to think about our goals because, buying a home's massive. But it doesn't mean it's always going to put you in the best possible financial position. Like I've done so many projections when I was a financial advisor for clients that said, actually, you're in a better financial position long-term if you just keep renting and we invest this money somewhere else or we do something else, because they were like, oh, Via, I don't actually care about this. And I was like, right, well, in that case, let's look at all of our options. So it's important to understand your why, because from my perspective, that is going to shape literally everything that you do. It's going to shape your timeline. It's going to shape your budget. It's going to shape the strategy that you implement, where we're buying, what that actually looks like. Jess, you are so type A and I love it. But that means that you have some very specific property goals.
Yeah.
Like you and I were talking yesterday about this potential block of land that you're going to buy. And you were like, look, I did tell them that I would have either an east or a west facing, but nothing else. And I was like, oh my God, you are so specific. So tell me, what are your property goals?
So it's not going to be a forever home because I'm very, aware of the fact that buying by myself, I only have so much money available to me, right? And so unfortunately that means I can't build my ultimate dream home, which is okay. So I've kind of done a lot of work on what are my non-negotiables, what am I not willing to compromise on versus what am I happy to compromise on. For me, orientation of the block is a big one because I freelance in content creation. It's also just a big thing for my mood as someone who suffers from SAD. So it's having as much light in there as possible is a really big thing for me. And east and west are the two optimal positions where I live.
It was east and west, wasn't it?
It was east and west. Yeah, good memory. At least, where I live.
When I said that, I was like, I'm going to get this wrong.
No, you were right. Well done. High ceilings, I've said before, is another one because I am going to have to buy a smaller block that fits within my budget. High ceilings makes the space feel bigger, lets more light in, that sort of thing. And the other thing that I was looking at a lot is I'm looking at a really specific area. It's the area that I currently live. Location-wise, it could not be more ideal for my lifestyle, but there's also, from my perspective, really good opportunity for capital growth because of the location it's in.
And you're getting lots of infrastructure in that area in the next 10 years as well.
Exactly right. So I think, without getting too specific, because I don't want to give away where I hopefully will live.
What was the address you were looking at again?
But there's lots of things happening that I think will make it really appealing to potential buyers in the future when I do eventually move on from the property.
Yeah, so you've got to have a think about like how are you going to pitch this to somebody else? Like if you were selling the property, is it close to schools? Is it close to public transport? Like what does that actually look like? Because sometimes we can get our hearts set on something, right? Like we've got this client at the moment who is trying to sell a property to move into their next one, but they bought their dream home in the country. Yeah. Stunning, but really niche. And it's been on the market for 2 years. So it's been really hard for them to sell. And like, that's okay. We kind of anticipated this, but what does that look like for you? Is that something that you're going to have to consider? And I guess once you've got your like, why am I buying? What would that actually look like? I think that's, where we actually do have to do the zoom out and we do have to do the, what I'm going to call like a market reality check. You need to know what your goal is actually going to cost you. Because like Jess, I think if I sat you down maybe like even 5 years ago when we started talking about like you saving for your home deposit, we probably had this really big wish list of things that we want. Yeah, I want a really big block. I want a really big house. Like all of these things that I think we all really want. But that doesn't mean that that's going to be our reality. That doesn't mean that that's what we're going to be able to afford. So what we want to do is get super familiar, not just with the area, but with the market. And this isn't just about like doom scrolling, because I doom scroll realestate.com.au. I don't know about you, at midnight with a glass of wine. It's about, let's look at what our goals are going to cost us. Let's look at very clean sold prices, not asking prices. What is property moving for? If you're in it for an investment or capital growth, I want you to start learning what makes a good property investment. If you don't know, you need to know. We're not buying an investment property without understanding what rental yield is, what it looks like for capital growth, what it looks like for, tenancy. How much is that going to cost you? If you're going to pay a real estate agent to manage your property, how much is that? Do you understand what is gentrification potential? Are you buying in an area a bit like Jess, where you know that in the next 10 years, there's going to be new schools, another hospital, things popping up and you go, okay, cool. I can see how this might become a little bit more expensive. What does that actually look like? And Jess, you and I actually did another episode recently, and we'll put a link in the show note to the episode about how to find your dream property. And this is going to sound like a little bit like I'm being a downer, and I don't mean that, but like, we don't just have to look at the property. We actually have to get really real about our own numbers as well. Jess, when you were starting to work out, okay, I want to buy, what did you do to work out what you could afford?
I mean, speak to a broker is probably the most obvious. They're going to be able to.
I think so, but like, what else?
Yeah. Doing a detailed budget, I think, is a really good. You need to understand what are your bare bones living expenses. Like, what does it cost you to exist? Because that at the most extreme that you can cut back to, I think, because we've seen over the last maybe 4 years, there's been so many ups and downs with interest rates. And, you know, at its peak, there were people who were having to sell because they couldn't afford to live their life and make their mortgage repayments. So having a really clear understanding of your budget, what you're spending, what can you realistically pay towards a mortgage, and what can you comfortably pay too, because just because you can live off that bare bones doesn't mean that you want to do that for the next, 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, because like you could be, when you said before, talk to a mortgage broker, but you could sit down and talk to a mortgage broker and they might go, okay, Jess, well, you can borrow $800,000. And you might go, oh, well, that's fantastic, but I've kind of done my budget and I don't really want to afford the repayments on $800,000. Like my lifestyle looks more like $600,000. And I think it can be really exciting talking to a broker because you go, oh my God, I didn't realize I could borrow so much. And that sometimes happens. And then you need to be really real. Do you actually want to borrow that amount? Because, the bank might say, Jessica Ricky, you can borrow $1 million.
That must be very nice.
but the repayments on that would be crippling.
Absolutely.
And it would take up all of your income and you wouldn't have any lifestyle. And as much as I think we are so happy to, scrimp and save when we're getting our deposit, do you want that to be the reality for the next 30 years as well? Like, I feel like we just want to get our deposit and like we're willing to make 1 million sacrifices. But then once you are in the house, are you actually happy now you're here, now we've achieved the goal to just eat 2-minute noodles every Friday night because we can't afford anything else?
Yeah. Do you want to put furniture in the house? All those sorts of things.
No, you don't need furniture. We've got milk crates.
We can sit on the ground. So it's, understanding your borrowing capacity too, because dependent on your circumstances, just because I can save $3,500 a month doesn't mean that a bank will necessarily loan me a mortgage that would be $3,500 return. So understanding what that borrowing capacity looks like.
And that can be really disappointing too.
Absolutely. And so, there's schemes and grants and things, which is, I guess, where your broker comes in to kind of help you look at all of the options, understand your serviceability, and also, checking in on all of your just other financial health stuff. Do you have debt that you want to pay down? Because that might increase your borrowing capacity. Do you have day-to-day spending or a credit score that you need to improve? Because by improving your credit score, you might increase what you can borrow from a bank. Lots of little things, but I would say talking to a broker is probably the cleanest, easiest way because they can be really holistic in the way they approach it with you.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to surprise anybody, but as an ex-financial advisor, when my husband and I were sitting down to work out what we could borrow for our first home, we'd worked it out. We had spoken to a broker because even though I own a mortgage brokerage, I don't do it myself. I actually have one of our brokers do the work for me because I'm like, I don't want to just, do it myself and then mess it up. They're better at it. They told me I could borrow more than what Steve and I had quote budgeted per month for our repayments, which was a nice position to be in, but we didn't want to do that. Because we had plans to have a family. We had plans to have a wedding. We had all these other things that I was like, so it's not a debt, it's not a repayment now, but what would it look like if we had a baby?
Yeah.
Do we want to be able to live off one income still? What would maternity leave look like? What would paternity leave? Do you know what I mean? There were just lots of conversations to be had, and it can be, boring and confronting, but do all of that so you're putting yourself in the best possible position. So Jess, next step, we're going to be aligning our goals with being realistic. So I guess we've been kind of hinting towards that, oh, you can borrow $1 million, but maybe you shouldn't.
Yeah.
If your numbers don't line up with the dream, so you go to a mortgage broker and you've in your head been okay, cool, I've saved 20% of a $1 million mortgage, which some people do, right? So that would be $200,000. To save $200,000 My goodness, that is so much money. Like, one, quite unrelatable. Please don't come at me for that. But like, quite unrelatable. But like, let's say you've done that because you and your partner, you've sat down, Jess and I, we've sat down. We're like, we're going to do this. We can sacrifice and scrimp and save, and we get to that $200,000 mark. And then we go see a broker and they go, that's great. We could lend you $800,000. You go, no. I've got a 20% deposit for $1 million home.
Yeah.
And they go, no. Even though you have that deposit, it's not just the 20%. It's like we looked at your incomes, and with your incomes, you can only service $800,000. So I think for me, that's where you want to have conversations earlier around, well, what would our budget be? What does our serviceability look like? Like what would, if we had 20%, what would the bank lend us? Now, it can be heartbreaking, and that's why I'm like, hey, here, can we work that out early so that you don't save a full 200, and this is obviously unrealistic, but like, you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
That you don't save 200 grand and then go to the bank and be like, knock, knock, and they go, haha, bye, we're shut. You need to make sure that if your numbers aren't aligning with your dreams, we can either adjust our dream or build a bridge to get there. So if your dream suburb is like out of reach and you still want to buy property, could we potentially like rent vest? You could go live in the suburb, but we could buy a property somewhere else and lease it out so we're still on the property ladder. Are we looking at a suburb that is maybe a little bit further out and is cheaper but still gives you the lifestyle that you're looking for? Would we look at maybe lower priced properties so that we could access government schemes? Because on these government schemes, like the First Homeowners Grant, they are capped. Different states and territories have different amounts, but they are capped. So do we realign to just buying under that so that we still like kind of slip into having some, some nice subsidies? We don't have to pay our stamp duty, or we might get a little bonus. And then once we're happy, we can talk about moving on to having a strategy, because it's so nice to have dreams and plans and conversations like this, Jess, but then we need to get into strategy, and you and I are going to do that right after this break. All right, Jess, we are back, and I don't know if this is the juicy stuff or the boring stuff, but I'm going to get into it, and that is the strategy. Jess, I want to ask, how did you work out your deposit strategy?
So I kind of did the math, shocking for me as someone who hates math, but you've got to do it.
You got to do what you got to do.
Absolutely. So you kind of got to work backwards. You've got to do all that pre-work that we were talking about before, do your research, figure out what you can borrow, look at, what is achievable for you in terms of what mortgage you want to take on, and then go, okay, well, what deposit do I need? Are there any schemes that I qualify for? There's the schemes that allow you to purchase with a 10% deposit instead of a 20 and still avoid LMI. There are all of these different options that may or may not be available to you, that you don't necessarily have to have that traditional 20% deposit. So work out what kind of deposit you would need and then work backwards from there. So if you want to buy in the next 2 years, but you can't save your deposit in that time, you go, okay, well, we might need to readjust that timeline. We need to be realistic, because especially in this cost of living crisis, you can only work with what you've got. And so sometimes that does mean exactly like me, like you've just got to push the timeline out and keep looking and keep saving. I would also say, remember to factor in the upfront costs.
Yeah. And they're so hard, because sometimes if you've gotten so far down the process, you're like, wait, what?
There are so many, I don't want to say hidden because they're not hidden, but costs that you don't consider. So if you don't qualify for a stamp duty exemption, stamp duty is so much money. Conveyancing, getting people to review contracts, building and pest inspection costs, moving costs.
The moving costs get me. Because like you forget, and then you've like spent all your money on your stamp duty, and like you've paid your conveyancer, and then settlement happens and you're like, I'm so excited. And then you go, oh, I'll get a quote for a moving vehicle. And you're like, what do you mean that's $1,000?
It's so expensive.
What do you mean?
So on top of your deposit to just pay for the house, you also need
How are we getting in it?
Yeah, you need a lump sum of cash to help get you across the line with all of those other things too.
A broker will do that for you. So a broker is always going to give you a little budget that says, okay, cool, this is what stamp duty on that property would look like, conveyancing costs, inspections, like they will absolutely let you know. So if you're worried about like, oh, what have I not taken into consideration? Your broker's going to know. know.
Yeah. And they should be able to talk you through what all of that looks like. And then once we've got those two kind of things, once we know how much of a deposit we will need to get into the property and what our timeline looks like, you're pretty much just dividing it, right? You're going, okay, well, I need X deposit. Let's say I need the $200,000 and I want to do it in 2 years. How much do I need to save per month? And then you might go, oh my God, $200,000 in 2 years is kind of insane.
And that's actually not going to happen for me.
And then we readjust the timeline. So you've got to work out what's practical for you. I think set a realistic goal too, because it's easy and good to go, oh, I can save 75% of my income, no problems. If you're doing that for 5 years, it can be really tough if you have to constantly be making sacrifices. So think about what's doable for you, what works with your lifestyle, with your budgeted spending for just existing in the world.
Yeah.
Because I think as well, because it can take so long now to save a deposit, if you're not realistic with yourself, it can be really disheartening and it can feel like you're just swimming uphill constantly. And that's
why I keep saying things like, oh, I don't mean to be a downer, but because I need to be realistic.
Yeah.
But it can feel like trash.
Absolutely. So set yourself up for success. And if we can shorten that timeline, great. But I think give yourself some room to breathe too.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we always think about the destination and forget that maybe we should enjoy the journey as well.
Yeah.
Like, I would much prefer it to take you another year, but you've had like a banger of a few years as opposed to you've scrimped and saved and you feel like you're just drowning. Like that's not fun for anybody. And I guess the good news is once you've done all of those hard parts and you've built the plan, there are ways to speed it up. So let's have a chat about how you could potentially turbocharge your saving strategy and then get there sooner. So should we say, I guess, let's start with like my favorite mouthful, which is the first home super saver scheme.
It just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
Just rolls off the tongue. Jess, you've capped that out. You've maxed out your first home super saver scheme. Can you tell us how you did that? What did that look like? Why did you do that?
Well, I did it because you told me to.
No. Sorry, backtrack. I am an ex-financial advisor. I would never give you that advice, Jessica. You mean I showed you it and you said, wow, that's such a good idea. I, off my own back, would absolutely love to do that, Victoria.
Exactly right. That's exactly how I remember going down.
Wow, Victoria, I've been thinking about the first home super saver scheme and I was like, wow, I'll give you the facts, but definitely not my opinion.
Definitely not. Who are you giving your opinion on?
Never. I would never tell you what to do with your money, Jess.
But it is a really great scheme. So it allows you to put your money into your superannuation fund and take advantage of the tax rate that exists within super. So
it's 15%, and most people listening to this podcast are going to have a 30% tax rate. So that's half off.
Correct.
Money win. Is that basically like legal money laundering? I think so.
Potentially. It's really nice. I made post-tax contributions. So because my money had already been taxed before it got paid to me, I would just transfer from my bank account into my superannuation fund. And at tax time, I would let my accountant know, or you can put it in when you do your tax on MyGov. And I would then get 15% of that money back, which it felt like free money. It was lovely. It does
feel like free money because that's kind of what it is.
Yeah. So it's kind of for savings. You're paying potentially 50% or more less tax on, the money that you're getting. You can put a maximum of $15,000 in per financial year, and you can contribute up to a total amount of $50,000. So if you wanted to, you could contribute.
So you're like rich. You've got like $50,000 sitting in your first home super saver scheme.
I know, it's lovely. It's really great because you can also withdraw 100% of the non-concessional contributions, the money you put in, but also 85% of the associated earnings.
Yeah. So it's been there a while and it's just been banking up, and maybe we got like a 10% return last year on the Australian share market. Where's that going, Jess? Your back pocket?
It's going right into my house deposit fund, and it is saying, thank you so much. We needed that little boost. So I would really recommend looking into it. We've said before, if you're planning on purchasing soon, look at the timeline in terms of financial year, because the contribution is per financial year. Theoretically, you could contribute, once in June and then once in July.
Yeah, technically. And I mean, this is going to drop after that. I mean, it's July now while we're recording this, but if you're planning on buying next July, at the end of July, you could drop it in now and then wait and then drop it in July and then pull it straight back out. Yeah, but we can't give tax advice.
We definitely can't, but it's worth keeping in mind, because I think that that gives you such a huge advantage, because that's 15% more that you could just put straight back into your fund.
100%. And I think just the idea that it's out of sight, out of mind is also quite helpful for first home buyers because I don't know about you. No, actually, I do know about you. I know you wouldn't do this, but I personally am really good at dipping into my savings if they're easily accessible. It's kind of like them being locked away so that you can't touch your home deposit, which feels really nice. And I mean, for most of us, saving $15,000 a year is honestly capping out what we can save. So like, yes, there's caps on how much you can contribute per financial year. And I remember talking to you, not giving you advice, but talking to you about your options with the First Home Super Saver scheme. And you'd actually saved up a heap in your bank account.
Yeah.
And so you were making lump sum contributions and kind of like taking the money you'd already saved, popping it into the First Home Super Saver scheme to then get the tax back at a later date, which ended up being a money win. And I think a lot of people think, oh, well, I didn't use it from the start. No, you can just use it now. Like, I think that's the benefit of it as well.
I totally agree. Now, the next one gets a bit of a bad rap, and I know that a lot of people really want to avoid it. I'm also one of those people, I'm not going to lie to you. But for everyone at home, can you explain a little bit about LMI?
Okay, so LMI is something that our community seem to think is the devil. And I would like to let you know that it is a really good tool in some aspects, or for some people. It stands for Lender's Mortgage Insurance, and it's an insurance that you pay that has nothing to do with protecting you, Jess. Doesn't protect you at all, which is why I think a lot of people hate the idea of it, because if you pay LMI, you are protecting the bank, not yourself. And the reason you're paying that is it's an insurance that the bank says you don't have a full 20% deposit, Jessica. So because you don't get any LMI waivers, there's no benefits here, we're going to make you take out this insurance and you're going to pay for this insurance, because if you can't pay for your home loan, the insurer will. And that's a good deal for us, but you're the one that kind of pays for the insurance on behalf of the bank.
Yeah.
Now, in Australia, LMI is usually payable, and there's lots of exemptions, but LMI is usually payable if your deposit on your first home or any home is less than 20% of the property price. So the amount is going to be really dependent on your deposit amount, the property price, your loan provider. And yes, you'll pay more, but let's go back, Jess, and like hopefully maybe reframe LMI. So you hate LMI. I know you do, because you don't want to pay for something useless, and I totally get that. But if I sat you down and said, okay, Jess, you can purchase 3 years ago because you only have 10% of the deposit, and then you'll have to pay, and then this goes on to your mortgage, so you don't have to have this in savings, an extra $10,000, and you can purchase today. Tell me whether you would have taken that up 3 years ago, given the property price increases in your area.
Yeah. I mean, hindsight's 2020, right? Like you can look at it and go, oh, wow, the growth has been crazy over the past few years. But yeah, it definitely can be worth it, I think, if it's going to be the difference between that time in the market and potentially avoiding such significant increases.
Yeah, and I think that that's where we need to frame it. Like, obviously, we don't want to pay for things that are unnecessary, but often LMI is a tool that you can use and pay for to get into the market sooner when you don't have the full deposit. Like, if you've only got 10%, you're like, oh, getting to this 20%, like I'm now on maternity leave, or, you know, my partner's job changed, or I want to do something, or, you know, we want to get married. So like now we're saving for a home deposit and a wedding. We have a 10% deposit though, or we have a 5% deposit and we need to talk to a mortgage broker. Maybe paying LMI gets you ahead. And I think with the astronomical amount that property has been increasing, for a lot of our clients, when we do projections, paying LMI actually makes a lot of sense for them. But I totally get not wanting to pay for an insurance that, one, doesn't benefit you, but two, just feels like another bloody cost.
Totally, yeah.
So yes, sometimes it is cheaper to pay LMI now and get into the market sooner and start building equity. And I guess that's where I'm not saying, oh, it means that blanket is good for everybody. It's not. You need to talk to your mortgage broker, and then they'll like mock up a few scenarios for you to go, okay, cool, this looks like this or this looks like that. Now, Jess, do you have any other hacks or tips or tricks for getting our deposit?
Yeah, totally. I think automating your savings, paying yourself first, and being really strict. In the fall,
That's hard though.
It is hard, but you kind of have to go, okay, if we're doing this, we're doing it. In the 4 years that I've been saving my house deposit, I have not, like if you look at the bank account that my deposit is saved in, there is not a single withdrawal in that 4-year period.
Okay, little Miss Flex.
Money
Could
goes
never
in
be
there
me.
and she never comes out, like in my mind. And that's where having a really clear budgeting system in place really benefits you. Like some months I might contribute more than others,
That must
but I
be
have
nice.
my base amount that goes in every month that I know does not get touched. And you can automate that. Out
That's
of
why
sight,
they
out of
call you
mind.
Jessica Rich.
Just drop the I. So automating is a really great way. Using a high interest savings account too, if you can, to take, get
Make
whatever
your money
benefits.
work.
Exactly. If I look at the interest that comes into my accounts every month, the bulk of it comes from my house deposit. And that's lovely because then I just chuck that in there too. It's very nice.
100%. That must be nice.
And if you are someone who's tempted to touch your savings, you need to add some kind of friction to prevent yourself from doing that. So is it having a completely separate bank from, your existing? Is it a bank account that you can lock? Is it something that requires double authentication or a password or just something that will stop you from going, oh, I need quick money now. Where can I take it from?
You are not taking it from your home deposit.
The money goes in there to die.
That's future you.
Yeah.
That's future you. Do not steal from her.
Exactly right.
The other thing, Jess, that you and I talk a lot about is lifestyle creep, and I hate it because I feel like over time life just gets more expensive because I think in my head I deserve nicer stuff, to go to nicer restaurants, to buy more expensive makeup. We're shopping at different, more higher end stores. Like I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but doing a little bit of a lifestyle audit can be really helpful. Like if you are a Jessica Ritchie, you want to save your deposit as aggressively as possible. Like, let's have a look at some scenarios. If you're like, I'm going to crack down for 12 months. Could you live somewhere cheaper? Like if you rent an apartment, could you maybe live in a share house for 12 months? Could you, do you actually use your car? Could you sell your car and go car free even for 12 months? Because you're going to save money on petrol, you're going to save money on rego and insurance. Like there are a heap of benefits there. You could pick up a car in 12 months. Like what would that look like? What other expenses are you able to cut? I'm not saying, you have to get rid of every single subscription, because for me, it's about the journey. But girl, what are you spending money on that maybe you don't need to for a little while?
Yeah.
Because sometimes I think when we're cutting things from our budget, we go, oh my God, no, I'll want that in the future. Okay, but we could cut it right now, save some money, and you can have it later. And I guess the other thing is serviceability, which is how much money the bank is going to be able to lend you. One of the things that can really play into that and really play into turbocharging your ability to get to the deposit amount you want, how could we increase our income? Can you talk to your boss about a pay rise? Could you be switching jobs for better pay? Could you pick up a side gig or a side hustle? Is there something that you could do or make on your own that you could sell or rent out? Jess is the queen of side hustles. Not only do you have your own little content creation thing on the side, you also rent dresses out. You're selling everything on bloody marketplace. You are the golden child for a side hustle, and I love it. But Jess, what are some things that you've actually sacrificed to increase your deposit?
I think a lot of it has been, very much lifestyle things. We only get
She's
takeout.
really boring now.
I honestly,
You are not.
We get takeout once a week. I talk a lot about being circular. So I still want to buy new clothes, but if I want to buy new clothes, I sell old ones. So I'm not necessarily spending more money. Shopping secondhand is such a big thing. I can do things more affordably. So yes, I'm giving up that instantaneous culture of going in and buying the newest, latest, whatever. But I think it's maybe a much more conscious consumer. Also, when we've had to make adjustments for cost of living, I have reduced the amount of money that I invest, which I don't love, but with money going not as far these days, you kind of have to pick something to prioritize. And for me right now, that has been my house deposit. I'm still investing, but I'm not investing as much as I used to. And that does suck. Honestly, there's no two ways around it.
But it comes into strategy, right?
That's what sacrifice is. Yeah.
Exactly. And you would have had to weigh up, okay, cool. I could still invest the same amount into my investments, but it's just going to take me a bit longer to buy a house. Or I could flip it around and sacrifice my investments for now and still be able to buy on my timeline. And that's more important to you.
Yeah.
And strategy isn't just about what's best, quote, on paper, but also what do you want? What do you want to achieve? What do you want your lifestyle to look like? And you've made decisions based on that. And I think that that's the most important thing.
The segue of all segues, may I just say, something people ask us a lot when we're talking about saving up your house deposit is, should I invest my house deposit? Oh, that's it.
That's it. That's the end of the show. Do not invest your house deposit. Why? Because you don't know what the market is doing. And we want to make sure that we are investing for the long term. Like, I am not a penny stock trader. I am not somebody who invests in things because I'm hoping it increases by 100% in 1 year. Like, low and slow. Like, I want to be rich AF. I don't think that's a secret.
Do we all?
Exactly. But like, my plan is going to work because it's low and slow consistently over the long term. I'm investing into some relatively boring things. You guys know most of my shares are in ETFs and I'm picking really boring managed funds. But y'all, my performance over the last 10 years has been more than 20% because of that. And that's not actually reflective of the market. That's just reflective of my personal portfolio. But it means, and because the average rate of return of the Australian share market over the last 30 years is sitting at about 9%, and all time it's sitting at about 11%. But I think it is so important because over that time, my share portfolio has gone down. And if I had plans to purchase that year, I'm sorry, I wouldn't have been able to because my portfolio would have been down by 11%.
Yeah.
And I've therefore got 11% less as a deposit. And so should you invest your deposit? No, that's why we recommend and talk to you about high interest savings accounts, because you're usually not saving a house deposit for more than 10 years.
Yeah.
All right, Jess, I feel like that's probably a very good place to leave it. Hopefully this chat has made buying a property feel a little bit more within reach. And even if you're doing it solo, my friends, you're not alone. We are right here cheering you on. And if you want a little bit more support, as it turns out, this is literally my job day in, day out. So if you've been meaning to talk to a mortgage broker and you want one that's basically like Jess and I, a bestie on your team, I will put all the information to my business Seller Money in the show notes. But Jess, thanks for doing this little property episode with me. It's been good.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
And guys, if you loved this episode, please make sure that you follow the show, leave us a review and share it with somebody else who's dreaming of getting into the property market. And if you want more episodes just like this, let us know in the comments because, guys, we are always watching and we are always listening. Have a good week, guys. Bye.
Bye.
The advice shared on She's on the Money is general in nature and does not consider your individual circumstances. She's on the Money exists purely for educational purposes and should not be relied upon to make an investment or financial decision. If you do choose to buy a financial product, read the PDS, TMD, and obtain appropriate financial advice tailored towards your needs. Victoria Devine and She's on the Money are authorised representatives of Money Sherpa Pty Ltd ABN 321 649 27708 AFSL 451289.